Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the known world. Emperor of Rome, commander of the greatest military force in history, absolute authority over millions of lives, unlimited wealth at his disposal. And he wrote in his private journal, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This is the paradox that breaks most people's brains. The man who could have anything wrote constantly about needing nothing. The man with absolute power meditated on his own insignificance. The man with infinite wealth treated money as a tool, not a goal. This isn't feel-good philosophy. This is the operational framework of someone who actually held power. And what he understood about money is the exact opposite of what you've been taught. By the end of this, you'll understand why the truly powerful don't chase wealth. They magnetize it. Why they don't accumulate for security. They accumulate for sovereignty. And why their relationship with money is fundamentally different from everyone drowning in desire for it. Let's start with Marcus Aurelius's core framework, the dichotomy of control. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Most people's relationship with money is rooted in fear of what they can't control. The economy, the job market, other people's decisions, circumstances beyond their influence. So they work frantically to accumulate enough money to buffer against all possible disasters. They hoard, they panic, they make decisions from scarcity. And that fear poisons every financial choice they make. The powerful operate from the opposite framework. They don't try to control the uncontrollable. They focus exclusively on what's within their domain. Their skills, their decisions, their responses, their standards. Marcus wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Applied to money. Your suffering about finances isn't caused by the money itself. It's caused by your thoughts about it, your beliefs, your attachments, your fears. The poor are mentally enslaved by money. They think about it constantly. They worry about not having enough. They fantasize about having more. They let their entire emotional state depend on their bank balance. The powerful? Money is a tool, nothing more. They're not emotionally entangled with it. They don't derive identity from it. They don't let it dictate their internal state. Marcus understood something most people never grasp. Wealth and poverty are states of mind before they're states of account. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. Think about that. Poverty isn't about the amount you have. It's about the gap between what you have and what you think you need. You can make 6 figures and feel broke because you're surrounded by people making 7. You can have millions and feel insecure because billionaires exist. The number is irrelevant. The mindset is everything. The powerful have eliminated the gap. Not by having infinite money, by having finite, clearly defined needs. They know exactly what's enough. And once they have enough, additional accumulation serves purpose, not psychology. Marcus lived in the most opulent palace in the world. He could have indulged every conceivable luxury. Instead, he lived simply. He ate basic food. He wore simple clothing. He slept on a hard bed. Not because he couldn't afford better, because better served no purpose. The luxury wouldn't make him wiser. It wouldn't make his decisions clearer. It wouldn't make his life more meaningful. This is the shift the poor never make. They think more will solve the internal discomfort. The powerful know that more just raises the baseline of what feels like enough. Let's talk about time. Marcus was obsessed with mortality. His meditations constantly returned to the brevity of life and the certainty of death. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. This isn't morbid. This is calibration. When you internalize that your time is finite and uncertain, you stop trading it carelessly. The poor sell time for money without calculating the exchange rate. 40 hours a week for decades. They never ask, is this worth the only resource I can never replenish? They rationalize it. They need the money. They have responsibilities. They have no choice. But Marcus would say, you always have choice. The question is whether you're willing to pay the cost of choosing differently. The powerful understand that money is renewable, time is not. So they optimize for time, not money. They'd rather make less and control their schedule than make more and be controlled by someone else's. They buy back time aggressively. They pay for services that free their attention. They eliminate activities that don't generate returns or meaning. They treat every hour as sacred because they understand that it is. Marcus wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Most people are dead long before they die. They're not living. They're enduring. They're trading their existence for survival. They're so busy making money that they have no time to consider what the money is for. Now let's address duty. Marcus saw himself as having specific responsibilities. Emperor, father, husband, student of philosophy, and he took those roles seriously. But here's what's critical. He didn't confuse duty with martyrdom. He fulfilled his obligations without resenting them. He served without expecting gratitude. He led without needing validation. Do what you have to do, what's required of you by your nature and the nature of things, and don't worry about whether people will know about it. Applied to wealth. Make money to fulfill your actual responsibilities. Support your family. Contribute to what you care about. Build security on you. But don't make money to impress people who don't care about you. Don't accumulate to signal status. Don't sacrifice meaning for material abundance you'll never use. Poor are trapped between two failures. Either they neglect their responsibilities chasing wealth, or they resent their responsibilities because fulfilling them limits their wealth. The powerful do neither. They meet their obligations without complaint and without excess. They make enough to fulfill duty. Beyond that, accumulation serves strategy, not ego. Marcus wrote extensively about externals, money, reputation, possessions, all externals, all outside your control, all fundamentally meaningless. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? Replace anger with greed. How much more destructive is the craving for wealth than the lack of it? How much suffering is created by wanting more than by having less? The poor destroy their peace pursuing money. They sacrifice relationships. They compromise values. They trade integrity for income. And they tell themselves it's necessary. But Marcus would ask, necessary for what? To accumulate things you don't need, to impress people you don't respect, to achieve a lifestyle that won't satisfy you anyway. The powerful know that externals can't touch your core. They can lose everything material and remain unbroken, because their identity isn't dependent on possessions. Their peace isn't dependent on circumstances. This gives them tremendous negotiating power. They can walk away from any deal. They're not desperate. They're not attached. They'll accept terms that serve them, or they'll decline. But they won't compromise their principles for profit. The poor can't do this. They need the money too badly. So they accept exploitation. They tolerate mistreatment. They surrender dignity for dollars. Let's talk about legacy. Marcus was building an empire. He was making decisions that would affect millions of people for centuries. But his focus wasn't on being remembered. It was on being useful. Not to live as if you had endless years ahead of you. Death overshadows you. While you're alive and able, be good. The poor think legacy is about leaving wealth to their children, generational money, dynastic accumulation. But Marcus understood. You can't leave character. You can't bequeath wisdom. You can't pass on integrity through inheritance. You can leave money, but if you haven't taught discipline, it'll be wasted. If you haven't modeled virtue, it'll corrupt them. If you haven't built character, the wealth will destroy what you are trying to protect. The powerful focus on developing capacity in themselves and others. They teach principles. They model behavior. They create opportunities for growth. The money follows the capacity, not the other way around. Give someone capability, and they'll generate wealth. Give someone wealth without capability, and they'll lose it. Marcus also understood impermanence. Everything changes. Empires fall. Fortunes disappear. Nothing material lasts. Time is a river of passing events, and strong is its current. No sooner is a thing brought to sight than it is swept by, and another takes its place. The poor try to build permanent security through accumulation. They think if they just get enough, they'll be safe forever. But there is no enough. There is no permanent safety. Economic conditions change. Currencies fluctuate. Systems collapse. What seems secure today can evaporate tomorrow. The powerful don't rely on static wealth. They build adaptive capacity. They develop skills that transcend specific markets. They cultivate relationships that survive economic shifts. They create flexibility rather than fortification. They know the only real security is the ability to create value regardless of circumstances, to adapt, to survive disruption, to rebuild from nothing if necessary. This is why they're not psychologically destroyed when they lose money, because they know they can make it again. The capability remains, even when the capital disappears. Let's address suffering. Marcus wrote constantly about bearing pain with dignity, about not complaining, about accepting what is with equanimity. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Most people resent their financial situation. They're angry they're not richer. They're bitter about others' success. They're consumed by comparison and resentment. This suffering is optional. The circumstances might not be chosen, but the suffering about the circumstances is always chosen. The powerful practice gratitude not as a platitude but as a strategy, because gratitude eliminates the psychological poison of envy. It creates contentment with what is, while still allowing pursuit of what could be. They can work toward more without resenting what they have. They can pursue growth without feeling inadequate. They can compete without being consumed by comparison. This is mental freedom, and it's worth more than any amount of money. Marcus wrote about focusing on the present moment, not dwelling on the past, not anxious about the future, just fully engaged with what is. Confine yourself to the present. The poor are trapped in past mistakes or future fears. They ruminate on bad financial decisions. They panic about potential disasters. They're never actually present. This creates terrible decision-making. They're either paralyzed by fear or reactive from desperation. They make choices to escape discomfort rather than to create value. The powerful practice ruthless presence. When they're working, they're fully working. When they're deciding, they're fully deciding. When they're at rest, they're fully at rest. This presence creates clarity. It eliminates the noise. It allows them to see reality without distortion, and clear perception is the foundation of good judgment. Now let's talk about service. Marcus saw his role as emperor as service to Rome. He wasn't there to be served. He was there to serve. What we do now echoes in eternity. The poor see money as something to take, to extract, to accumulate for themselves. They're in competition with everyone around them. The powerful see money as a byproduct of service. They create value for others. They solve problems. They build things people need. And wealth flows to them as a natural consequence. This isn't altruism. This is mechanism. The market rewards those who serve it well. The more people you serve, the more problems you solve, the more value you create, the more wealth you accumulate. But you can't fake this. You can't just pretend to serve while actually extracting. The market can tell. People can tell. Your results will tell. You have to genuinely care about solving the problem, about creating the value, about making the contribution. The money follows the value, not the other way around. Marcus practiced negative visualization. He regularly imagined losing everything: his position, his family, his life. Not to be morbid, but to reduce attachment and increase appreciation. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. The poor can't do this. Imagining loss creates panic, so they're thinking about it, which means they're unprepared when it happens. The powerful practice worst-case thinking constantly. What if I lost all my money? What if my business failed? What if my reputation was destroyed? They don't catastrophize. They strategize. They prepare. They build redundancy. They maintain options. They ensure that even the worst outcomes are survivable. This preparation eliminates fear. When you know you can survive the worst, you're free to take calculated risks. You're not paralyzed by what might happen. You've already planned for it. Let's talk about virtue. Marcus believed that the only true good is virtue. Everything else is indifferent. Preferred, perhaps, but not essential to a good life. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. The poor compromise principles for profit constantly. They'll cheat a little. They'll cut corners. They'll rationalize unethical behavior if it serves their financial interest. And they think they're being pragmatic. But they're actually being stupid. Because reputation is worth more than any single transaction. Trust is worth more than any immediate gain. The powerful are ruthlessly ethical, not because they're moral paragons, because it's profitable long-term, because people want to work with those they trust, because integrity reduces friction and increases opportunity. They don't need to be told to do the right thing. They do it automatically because they've internalized that it serves them. Ethics aren't a constraint on profit. They're a foundation for sustainable profit. Marcus also wrote about attention. What you pay attention to becomes your reality. Where you direct your focus determines your experience. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. The poor consume content that makes them feel inadequate. They follow people who trigger envy. They marinate in narratives of scarcity and victimhood. And they wonder why they feel poor, powerless, trapped. Because they're feeding their minds poison and expecting health. The powerful are ruthless about information diet. They consume content that educates, that challenges, that expands capability. They avoid toxic narrative. They protect their attention like the finite resource it is. They know that thoughts become actions. Actions become habits. Habits become character. And character determines destiny. So they're very careful about what thoughts they allow to take root, what narratives they accept, what beliefs they adopt. Let's address the purpose of wealth. Marcus never saw money as an end, always as means. The question was, means to what? You must be one with yourself before you can be one with the world. The poor accumulate without purpose. They just want more. They haven't defined what enough is. They haven't identified what the money is for, beyond vague security or status. The powerful have crystal clarity. They know exactly what they're building toward, not just an amount, a life, a capability, a contribution, a legacy of meaning. Money is just the resource that enables the real goal. Time sovereignty, creative freedom, impact, service, whatever they've defined as their purpose. This clarity makes every financial decision simple. Does this serve the purpose or not? If yes, do it. If no, decline. No ambiguity, no confusion. Marcus wrote about justice, about treating people fairly, about not taking advantage even when you could. Do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. The poor often think the game is zero-sum, that for them to win, someone else must lose. So they're comfortable with exploitation, with extraction, with taking advantage. The powerful know that the best deals are mutual value creation. That sustainable wealth comes from voluntary exchange where both parties benefit. That exploitation might work once, but trust works forever. They pay fairly. They honor agreements. They don't squeeze every advantage. Not because they're soft, because they're playing infinite games where reputation compounds and relationships multiply opportunity. Let's talk about discipline. Marcus was a practitioner of Stoic exercises, daily meditation, voluntary discomfort, mental rehearsal, all to strengthen character. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The poor are undisciplined about money. They spend impulsively. They avoid difficult financial tasks. They lack systems. They operate reactively. The powerful treat financial discipline like athletic training. They track. They measure. They optimize. They automate. They eliminate friction. They build habits that compound. They don't rely on willpower. They rely on systems. They structure their environment so that good financial behavior is the path of least resistance. They automate savings. They limit access to spending accounts. They create friction for impulse purchases. They make discipline the default. Marcus understood that external rewards are hollow. The only true reward is the development of character through virtuous action. The reward for a thing well done is to have done it. The poor need external validation. They need others to see their success. They need status symbols to prove their worth. The accumulation is performative. The powerful are internally validated. They know what they've built. They know what they're capable of. They don't need to prove anything to anyone. This makes them immune to status games. They don't buy luxury to impress. They don't chase titles to feel important. They're free from the exhausting treadmill of social comparison. They might have luxury, but it's for utility or genuine pleasure, not for display. The difference is psychological freedom. Let's return to mortality. Marcus wrote about death constantly because remembering you will die clarifies what matters. It is not death that a man should fear, but rather he should fear never beginning to live. The poor are so focused on survival they never actually live. They're postponing life until they have enough money, until retirement, until someday. But someday never comes, because there's always another goalpost, another amount, another milestone. The powerful live now. They've structured their lives so they're doing meaningful work today, building relationships today, experiencing what matters today, not waiting for permission, not waiting for security, not waiting for retirement, living fully in the present while building for the future. Marcus also practiced view from above meditation, imagining the world from a cosmic perspective, seeing his empire as a tiny speck, his life as a brief moment. Alexander the Great and his mule driver both died, and the same thing happened to both. This creates humility. It destroys ego. It reveals the absurdity of taking yourself too seriously. The poor are often grandiose about their importance. They think their financial struggles are cosmic injustices. They take everything personally. The powerful have perspective. They know they're not that important. They know their money doesn't make them special. They can laugh at themselves. They can hold power lightly. This makes them pleasant to work with, easier to trust, more human, and ironically, more effective. Here's the practical framework. How do you actually adopt Marcus Aurelius's relationship with money? First, define enough. What specific amount covers your actual needs plus reasonable security? Write it down. Everything above that is choice, not necessity. Second, eliminate dependency between money and emotional state. Your worth isn't your net worth. Your peace isn't dependent on your balance. Practice gratitude daily until this becomes automatic. Third, optimize for time sovereignty. Every financial decision should be evaluated on whether it increases or decreases your control over your time. Fourth, serve deliberately. Build wealth by creating genuine value. Solve real problems. Don't extract. Don't manipulate. Contribute. Fifth, build adaptive capacity. Develop skills that transcend specific circumstances. Create relationships. Maintain flexibility. Prepare for worst cases. Sixth, practice discipline. Track everything. Automate good behavior. Eliminate impulse. Build systems. Seventh, maintain perspective. You will die. Nothing material matters as much as you think. Hold it all lightly. Marcus Aurelius had everything, and he wrote about needing nothing. That's not contradiction, that's mastery. When you're no longer controlled by money, money flows to you. When you're no longer desperate for it, you make better decisions about it. When you're no longer defined by it, you can use it effectively. The poor are enslaved by money. The powerful are served by it. Same resource, opposite relationships. And the difference isn't the amount. It's the psychology. It's the framework. It's the philosophy. Marcus had access to unlimited wealth but lived simply. Not because he was denying himself, because he'd found what was enough. And more than enough was just burden. He had absolute power, but wrote about his own insignificance, not because he was weak, because he had perspective. He faced death constantly, but remained calm. Not because he was fearless, because he was prepared. This is how the truly powerful think about money. It's a tool, nothing more. Useful, important, but not sacred. Not worth sacrificing meaning, not worth trading your soul. The poor worship money. The powerful use it. The poor are controlled by it. The powerful control it. The poor need it desperately. The powerful need it precisely. And that difference in relationship creates completely different outcomes. Not just in wealth, in peace, in freedom, in the quality of existence itself. Marcus Aurelius could have lived in decadent luxury. Instead, he chose disciplined simplicity, not from deprivation, from wisdom. He understood what most people never learn. More doesn't make you happier. Purpose makes you happier. Mastery makes you happier. Virtue makes you happier. Money just makes you more of what you already are. If you're anxious without money, you'll be anxious with it. If you're dissatisfied with little, you'll be dissatisfied with much. But if you've cultivated character, if you've developed capacity, if you've clarified purpose, then money becomes fuel for what matters, instead of a trap of endless wanting. So here's the question Marcus would ask. What are you actually pursuing? Is it money? Or is it what you think money will give you? Because if it's peace, money won't provide it. Peace is internal. If it's freedom, money helps but isn't sufficient. Freedom is first mental. If it's meaning, money is irrelevant. Meaning comes from contribution. The truly powerful have solved the internal equation first. Then they use money as a tool to implement their solutions in the external world. They're not chasing wealth. They're creating value. And wealth follows value. Always has. Always will. You want to think about money like the powerful? Stop worshipping it. Stop fearing it. Stop being controlled by it. See it clearly. Use it wisely. Hold it lightly. And focus on what actually matters. Developing character that can't be taken from you. Building capacity that transcends circumstances. Living with purpose that makes the brief time you have meaningful. That's how Marcus Aurelius thought about money. The most powerful man in the world treating wealth as a footnote in a life dedicated to virtue. Not because he was special, because he was wise. And wisdom is available to anyone willing to think clearly, live deliberately, and reject the delusions that keep most people trapped in desperation. The choice is yours. stay enslaved by money, or master it the way Marcus did.